The first season of Tokyo Ghoul had managed to unravel the knots that made the manga good in a 12-episode mess they called an anime adaptation. Their second attempt screamed incompetence from beginning to end. But Tokyo Ghoul Re gave me asphyxia. Needless to say, finally getting the chance to talk about this dumpster fire gives me some catharsis. Based on the manga of the same name, Tokyo Ghoul Re is the third attempt at adapting the manga series created by Sui Ishida into an anime, and like the other two attempts, this doesn't do a good job at adapting the material. But why is that? Well, to start, for anime-only watchers, they'll likely be confused within the first few minutes of episode 1, because instead of seeing Kaneki as the main lead, we get Sasaki Heisei as our main protagonist. So what the hell happened to Ken? Well, since Route A decided to have Ken walk with Hideyoshi bridal style instead of show what actually happened, anime-only watchers don't know that Ken lost his memory thanks to Arima Kisho in the second half of Tokyo Ghoul, since that wasn't adapted properly to the anime, and Sasaki is basically another personality for Ken. Speaking of, the first half of Tokyo Ghoul Re is focused on Kaneki getting his memory back while dealing with forgettable ghouls in almost every episode, and the second half, aka Season 2, is dealing with more forgettable ghouls while Kaneki tries to deal with Arima and then tries to unite ghouls and humans. Yeah. Oh, and apparently Route A isn't canon, but I have my doubts on that considering a few events from that series are from the manga, say for the aforementioned memory loss, albeit handled poorly, since it'll sometimes choose events from the chapter 100s, and then in the same episode go to events from before chapter 100, so frankly, my advice when it comes to Route A is to skip it, just read the remaining chapters of the manga after you watch Tokyo Ghoul's first season, and then go into Re. It makes it less confusing that way. Speaking of confusing though, Re decided to copy Route A's pattern of adapting from all over the place when it comes to the second season. Because screw adapting things normally, let's just adapt scenes from random chapters even if it doesn't make sense story-wise. And that's the big thing here. Making sense. Other series, including ones I like, do adapt scenes from random chapters from time to time, but usually those ones either make the pacing better or are positioned in a better spot to help the story, i.e. JoJo Part 5 Golden Wind moving some of the backstories to earlier in the story so that we already know their past early on and not much later in the series like the manga had done. Tokyo Ghoul, on the other hand, doesn't make the pacing better or positioned in a better spot. It just makes things a bigger mess to the point where I wondered numerous times if I missed an arc, because it felt like story/character elements of the source material were missing. Hell, they kill off Arima early on in the second part of Re, and instead of it feeling like a glorious death because he was responsible for giving Kaneki amnesia, it instead just felt odd to see him kill himself, as well as seeing Kaneki's reaction, especially after he got his memories back. Like there was more to the relationship, but we only got a tiny bit of that thanks to the anime, so as a result it wasn't as impactful. And this should have been a really impactful scene, but because a lot of the actions between the two are either implied or small in this, I don't feel this hits the right notes that it should in order to make this scene successful, and that is a really big shame. Maybe it's better in the manga, but if I have to read the manga to achieve something the anime couldn't do, then that's just gonna make me hate the adaptation more, because instead of reading the source material out of choice, it's because I'm forced to in order to understand this, or in order for scenes like this to be effective. And if childhood memories are anything to go by, being forced to do something is not fun or a pleasant experience. Speaking of pleasant, like Season 1, the legally available version is censored when it comes to the horror. Remind me why this is rated R/17+ when it's censored like a PG-13 version of it? Or better yet, remind me why even bother adapting it if you're going to make so many cuts to it in terms of story and the horror element of a horror series? Legit! They compressed 179 chapters into 24 episodes, about 58 for Season 1, or the first part, which was 12 episodes, and then 121 chapters for the second half.
What? What?
No wonder this feels rushed and incomplete then. Holy crap, what the hell? Well, it could be worse. At least the show didn't handle something like romance or pregnancy in the show with our main lead. Well, I guess Toka shares another resemblance to a rabbit then, outside of the mask, because not only does she want to fuck in a dirty place, but she also gets pregnant in the same episode as them fucking with barely any noticeable time jump. You know what I also love? Being told about Kaneki and Toka's interactions at the cafe in between him losing his memories and getting it back, and not shown it! Because screw investment and build up to these two falling in love this season, let's just cut to Kaneki popping Toka's blueberry, despite the fact they were on the run from Kaneki's former squad mate in a previous scene. Give me a break. They couldn't even animate the sex scene. It's a couple pictures, then moments of their interactions from season 1, and that's it. So, question, why even bother putting the scene in the show if you're just gonna half-ass it? I think that may be even worse than not including it at all, because you basically just gave up halfway. And given how the safety of his wife and child plays a part in Kaneki's development later on in the second half, seeing the romance and the whole pregnancy aspect of Toka being rushed/handled poorly really bugs me, because this could have worked with what it was trying to get across for his character/story as well as Toka's. But instead it just feels rushed and slapped in there like it was an afterthought, and I really doubt that's what the original author intended back when he created this scene in the manga. And if I didn't enjoy the execution of the romance between Toka and Kaneki, you bet your ass I did not enjoy the execution of Amon's reveal as a one-eyed ghoul, the new character Toru Mitsuki wanting to kill Toka for taking Hanaki/Heisei away from them romantically, or even the reveal that Rize was resurrected and turned into a really stupid-looking dragon hybrid that Kaneki kills easily in the final episode without even a fight from Rize. Okay, I think you get the idea. This anime has its issues as an adaptation, and it feels rushed. Is there any other issues I can say about this show? Yes. I am not a fan of the Quinks, as well as them making a good amount of characters in the series half-ghouls, half-human, because it takes away from Kaneki's unique trait of being a one-eyed, half-human, half-ghoul fusion in a world with pure humans and ghouls. So, let's go down the list. Orie is the serious leader type kind of character focused on getting ahead in the organization, and only really develops/becomes interesting in the end of the first half of Re with the death of Shirazu, and by then it was too late for me to like this character because that was near the end of the first half of Re. I was already losing interest in this series by then. Even after said first half, we don't see him doing much since season 2, or the second half, is mainly focused on Kaneki and dealing with remaining bad guys, so when Orie does stuff like talk with Toru near the end of the series to try and stop them from killing, I just feel apathetic because I didn't really feel a bond between him and the other members of the Quinks outside of Shirazu prior to this, and by this point, it was near the end of the series where everything was wrapping up, so yeah. Not a big fan of Urie. He's just bland and uninteresting as a character to me. Shirazu is an okay character, and it felt like he should have stuck around longer than, say, Urie, because he had a more interesting backstory of him taking on jobs to help his family. And he also had better chemistry with characters like Todo and Heisei, where it came off like these were people in a group who've known each other for a long time, and not just two strangers interacting for the first time like I felt with Urie. Hell, he even got some development earlier than Urie, and it sucked to see him die, because I honestly care for him as a character throughout the first season, and I wanted to see him live. But sadly that wasn't the case, and the second half had Urie basically try and lead the Quinks his way, and it just didn't feel that well handled. Psycho existed, I guess? She felt like such a non-entity throughout the show that I kind of forgot she was even in it. Her personality is not that interesting, basically that she is lazy and likes to play games. Her chemistry is really flat, especially with characters like Shirazu and Toru where I barely felt anything. She just felt like wasted space, honestly. And then, outside of the leader Heisei and the other ones introduced in the second half of Re, which I'll be covering shortly, we have Toru Mitsuki. This character kind of mirrors my opinions on Psycho, in which that they aren't that interesting as a character, though in this case, it's in terms of personality and development. But to give Toru credit, they at least do stuff in the show that makes me remember them more than, say, Seiko. They try to kill Toka, they have good chemistry with characters like Shirazu and especially Kaneki/Heisei, and does try to fight back against Torso, who's been trying to kill her at a few points in the series. Though for some reason we never see Torso after episode 3 of Re's second season. Huh. I guess he just left the island and went back to being a cab driver. Or he's dead and they didn't bother to show it. I suppose I should also mention the controversy of the studio removing a lot of the bits that showcase that Toru is biologically female but identifies as a male while working for the CCG. So I will. I think this was a dumb change, just like them censoring a lot of the horror/graphic bits in this show. Like I said, half-assing something is worse than not trying at all, and this is what it feels like when it comes to this character in these bits. Now, yes, there is a lot more to this character in the source material, like why they identify as a male as well as the messed up things they did in the past, but the anime took a lot of it out. So this bland character comes across as they might have more to them, but the only way you're going to find out is mandatory reading. But those are my thoughts on Toru. Alright, let's move on to oh, right, yeah, I forgot about this. Yeah, the second half of Re introduced 3 characters into the Quinks. Yeah, Aura, Higamaru, and Sao are so goddamn forgettable. But that does seem to be a theme of Tokyo Ghoul Re, isn't it? Insert a bunch of new characters, even if they hardly serve a purpose in the story, just to make the world look deeper than it actually is. God, even after changing the subject to discussing my thoughts on the Quinks' characters, I still found issues with the show as an adaptation. Either that means I suck at changing the topic, or I find this problem to be so bad it affects even the character element of the show. Nah, it's probably just the former. Speaking of former, Heisei Sasaki was an okay character. He had good chemistry with most of the team, a personality that didn't make me hate him, unlike several members of this group, and his arc of slowly getting his memories back, resulting in the return of Kaneki, was handled decently, and Kaneki was a lot less whiny in this, at least he got character development since then, so that is an improvement over Tokyo Ghoul. Actually, yeah, screw it. Let's talk about some positives I found with this show. I've been a little bit too negative. So, yeah, like I said, Kaneki's a lot less whiny than before. He's clearly shown he's matured since then. Doko is a bit less irritating to see on screen in comparison to the original Tokyo Ghoul series, though, again, would have liked to see her development and not told it. And her chemistry with Kaneki was, let's see, what else? Kichimura, aka Soda, dying was a good scene because he was an annoying waste of space and tried too hard to be taken seriously throughout the show, so it was good to see him finally removed. And I think that's it for positives on my end. To be brutally honest, this was legit a chore to watch from beginning to end. I had taken multiple breaks during my binge watching sessions because I was either starting to fall asleep during the fight scenes or scenes with the characters talking, or I was shaking my head at some of the dumber moments, like Kaneki killing Rize easily, Arima killing himself, or Kaneki turning into some centipede looking thing. Even if some of them have a reason behind it, that doesn't mean I have to like it, and I don't with the latter 2 examples. Speaking of stuff I do not like, let's talk about animation, because personally, it is really not as great as the last series this time around, and there's a big reason for that. See, Tokyo Ghoul Re is technically animated by a different studio name, but is still partially under the same company as the ones who did the first season that I reviewed, that being Piero Plus, a subsidiary / backup for Studio Piero, and it is not good. The color palette is a lot less rich in variety, and it is unappealing to the eyes at numerous points. The character designs aren't as good, the fight scenes have worse cinematography and choreography to them, to the point where, like I said before, it became boring to watch. It is generally a downgrade. Music is a huge step down as well. The intros for both halves, Asphyxia and Catharsis, suffer from poor composition, lyrics, and even the visuals are a mess, so I can't even give it credit for looking great visually. I didn't find them catchy, well written, or even great to watch. And those are just the intros of the series. The background music is also incredibly forgettable to the point where I can't even hum it or remember what the song name is, let alone what it's from. And I am someone who listens to music a bunch during his off time. More power to you if you like the soundtrack, but I'm unfortunately not one of them, and that is a real shame because I did somewhat like the music to the original Tokyo Ghoul series. But yeah, I think you can tell that I really did not like this show. The story wasn't that great and poorly paced / compressed to hell. I didn't like a lot of the characters. The audio and animation is a downgrade. This is a crappy anime and a crappy adaptation of the source material if I haven't made that point enough times in this review. It doesn't work for anime-only fans. It doesn't work for manga fans. It doesn't work at all. But on the topic of horror, hey, at least we're getting another Junji Ito anime adaptation. I'm sure it has to be better than the Junji Ito collection. Why is it that every time I say that, the opposite happens? Thank you all for watching. Special thanks to my patrons. And have a great day, everyone.